Good evening and a very warm welcome from Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir. This is a special broadcast and a continuation of our ground coverage since the Pahalgam massacre 1 week ago. Now, 1 week later, the Prime Minister has just held a meeting with the three armed forces chiefs for the first time at a forum of this kind. The Defence Minister, the Chief of Defence Staff and the National Security Advisor were also there, but it's the words that have been used attributed to the Prime Minister by government sources that have now set alarm bells ringing. He has said that he respects the operational freedom of the armed forces and is giving them complete freedom to choose the mode, timing and targets of India's response. I'm going to get into that in great detail. That will also be followed by a ground report as we continue to bring you the real picture of where things are at. And before I continue, I want to say on NDTV, we always take permission from the armed forces before we go into any sensitive area, and all of our coverage is under the watchful eye of the armed forces at a time like this, which is very important. In the Baramulla sector, in the Afrawat Peak, in Gulmarg, and a little later at LOC Baramulla as well. I'll be bringing you a ground report to tell you about everything that's happening. No operational details, no sensitive elements at all whatsoever, only to give you a sense of what the mood is in the country. But the big story and the big focus and the mood has been set by Prime Minister Modi in India's national capital with that meeting. Pictures and images have emerged from that meeting, and it is easy to say that everyone captured in those frames are basically entrusted by the country and capable of bringing a whole lot of pain to Pakistan. But the words that have been attributed to this meeting officially from our sources in the Prime Minister's office, saying that the Prime Minister respects the armed forces, holds them in the highest regard and gives them complete operational freedom to choose the mode, targets and timing of India's response, is something that has really taken things to the next level and transformed anticipation and speculation over what's going to happen next to fever pitch. Vishnu Shom is with us. He's our group executive editor. Vishnu, the words that have been attributed to the Prime Minister in this meeting all but confirm now that there is going to be a military response. Words like target, mode and timing, leaving it to the operational freedom of the armed forces, makes a lot of things clear.
The Prime Minister has greenlit military action. It's as simple as that. Now, we don't know if it's going to be by air, it's going to be out at sea or by land or all three, or perhaps none of those, because there are all sorts of ways in which you can take action. They could be covert strikes, there could be intelligence-based operations. I can name, and so can you, a dozen or more options in each category. Be that as it may, I think it's a very strong signal. Here is the Prime Minister who's got the views of the Chief of Defence Staff, the Army Air Force Navy Chief, the National Security Advisor, the Defence Minister, who said, all right, I've heard what you have to say, go ahead and do it. Now, people watching this broadcast would be asking, does that mean that something's going to happen overnight? Does that mean something is imminent? The answer to that is we don't know. It could be immediate, it could be many months later. But one way or the other, something is going to happen. And I think there'd be a lot of people in Pakistan particularly wary about where this is headed, but they should remember that it was the Pakistan Army Chief who was responsible directly for this horrific terror attack in which 26 people, innocent people, lost their lives in Pahalgam.
And Vishnu, with these comments coming out attributed to government sources from that meeting, it also sort of dispels the perhaps the impression that has built up over the last 1 week, that nothing is happening. Where is that response? This shows the wheels of the system are still turning. Vishnu, quickly, and then I'll go to Aishwarya.
No, and I think that's really important. People shouldn't assume that a military response will happen immediately. Pakistan may actually have expected us to respond immediately. What we are doing is we are picking a time and place of our choosing. The Prime Minister has now, so many days later, said, all right, go ahead. It shows that we are determined. It shows that we are thinking about what the options are. We want to do what is correct, what is best, and what is most effective. So don't wait around. It'll happen when it happens, but something is going to take place.
Aishwarya is also with us. He's been tracking that meeting at the PMO. Aishwarya, definitely the most top-level meeting that's taken place today. There was also an internal security meeting that's taken place earlier today at the aegis of the Home Ministry. Tomorrow, of course, is the big cabinet committee on security. It looks like the mood has been set.
Well, that's right, Shiv. In fact, it was a day of series of meetings that took place in the national capital. Hectic parleys, and the nature of all of those meetings was strategic in nature. As far as the Ministry of Home Affairs is concerned, today the DGs of the BSF, the DG of the National Security Guard, senior officials from the CISF, CRPF, all were called and they were briefed to the Home Secretary Govind Mohan. The report was submitted back to Home Minister, and it was at the 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, which is Prime Minister's official residence. Soon after that, a meeting started, and this was a first of its kind meeting after Pahalgam terror attack. All of the three service chiefs, NSA, the CDS, along with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, and in those visuals we can see they all were briefing Prime Minister about the recent developments. And as the sources clearly stated, that Prime Minister had stated that they have full confidence in our Indian armed forces, in their professional abilities, and it has the Prime Minister who has now left to the armed forces to decide the targets, the timings and the place as to how India will respond. Now it is at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, a big RSS meeting which is underway. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat has arrived after that key security meeting ended. It is RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat who is at the 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, and currently the meeting is underway between the Prime Minister and Mohan Bhagwat is what we can report from here.
Okay, I want to talk over those pictures for just a moment. Once again, Aishwarya, stay with me. In this room, in that single frame, in these pictures from this top-level meeting, are basically all of the people in government and the security establishment, who have the power to effect a large military response. Everyone is in that room right now, including the highest level of a military response, if you know what I mean. You've got the Prime Minister, obviously. You've got Rajnath Singh, who is the Defence Minister. You've got the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. You've got General Upendra Dwivedi, who is the Chief of the Army Staff. You've got Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh, who's the Chief of the Air Staff. Admiral D.K. Tripathi is Chief of Naval Staff, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. This pretty much right now is the security establishment, and all decisions being taken in this room will reflect in tomorrow's Cabinet Committee on Security meeting. We're privileged to be joined as we analyze this critical meeting between the Prime Minister and the chiefs by a former Chief of the Army Staff, General Deepak Kapoor. Thank you very much, General, for your time. Good to have you. I wish these were under better circumstances, but these are difficult and tense times. I'm reporting from here in Jammu and Kashmir. I wanted your opening thoughts, sir, on the words being attributed to the Prime Minister from the PMO during this meeting, where he says he gives the armed forces the entire operational freedom to choose the mode, timing and targets in India's response. General Kapoor.
Shiv, thank you very much for being on your channel. And to begin with, I'd like to thank you as well as wish the armed forces the very best for whatever happens in the future. Having done all that had to be done by the government in terms of invoking the international opinion in favor of the country, as well as other decisions which have been taken at the political level, if there's any kinetic action has to happen, it has to be done by the armed forces, and I'm sure that the armed forces of the country would deliver whatever they are asked to do by the government of India. And I'm glad you are in an area where I commanded a brigade and subsequently was commanding the Northern Command at a point in time.
The scene now shifts in many ways, General Kapoor, to the armed forces. Obviously, the political leadership will have given a sense of direction. Multiple meetings have already happened, including a cabinet committee on security meeting. You've been part of many of those meetings when you were the chief as well. Obviously, we never want to go into sensitive details or specifics at a time like this. We're very, very aware of that. But could you throw some light now on the public wanting to know what happens next? Not in terms of what actions will be taken next, but what will the armed forces be doing? Now they've got this directive from the Prime Minister. What happens next, sir?
Let me clarify that from the time this Pahalgam episode occurred, the armed forces have from there onwards started preparing for any action that the country may demand or the government of India may want to be taken. So to that extent, that bit of notice has been taken care of in the last 6 to 7 days. The armed forces are right now getting ready with whatever plans they finally decide. There are a large number of options available to the armed forces. And it's a matter of their choice and people on the ground to decide which is the most suitable, keeping all the circumstances in view and also ensuring an integrated and a combined approach by the three armed forces. As to how they will come into play, in what form, is a matter which the armed forces leaders, currently the three chiefs and the CDS, would decide with the approval of the government of the country. But the Prime Minister, having given a free hand to the armed forces, after having given his directions, it now devolves on the armed forces to go ahead with plans which they feel are most appropriate to deal with this situation and to bring to the perpetrators of this crime this aspect of how they need to be punished and how this terrorism, which has been going on for a long period of time, since 1989 to be precise, needs to be controlled. We did try our best to do it in 2016 by the Uri strike. We also tried our best to do it in 2019 with the Balakot strike, but those only produced temporary reprieve, and we as a country are looking for a permanent reprieve from this scourge of terrorism. To that extent, I'm sure the plans are being made to take care of that, and that is what I'm expecting the armed forces to execute based on the direction of the government of India.
General Kapoor, final question then. I've just returned from the line of control, obviously with due permissions from the army and the establishment. We, of course, didn't film in any sensitive areas. We filmed, much further back in the Baramulla area, where there are tourists and things like that. But my question to you now, sir, is at the line of control, and we also traveled to Uri. The army officially announced today that from Akhnur to Uri to, to Kupwara and other such sectors, ceasefire violations have been happening. And I read a report today that says that since the 2021 ceasefire agreement, the last 5 days constitute the heaviest ceasefire violations, since that agreement was entered into between India and Pakistan. What, in your view, is Pakistan trying to do by lighting up the LOC at this time, sir?
Well, having started this cycle of terrorism, now the Pakistanis are expecting a kind of a response and from our side, and that has also been made very clear by our Prime Minister in the past when he spoke post the massacre which they indulged in at Pahalgam. So that has put them on a bit of caution, and to ensure that and to show to us that they are ready for a fight, they're obviously trying for the last 4 to 5 days to show their presence by keeping the LOC active, and their attempt is to try and dissuade any kinetic action from our side. But let me say this, while you may be in the Baramulla area, we have the entire long line of control starting all the way from just about north of the boundary with the state of Jammu and Kashmir, going all the way right up to Kargil and beyond, right up to Siachen. In all these areas, the action that the armed forces decide to take, it's a matter of decision as to what suits them. They have a large series of options, and they can either use an option singly or they can combine it with others. Also, they can use the air and navy to the extent they feel appropriate, and in consultation with each other to give the adversary an integrated approach as far as the action is concerned. So the activation of the line of control in the last 4 or 5 days is very much understandable.
Okay.
It's an attempt by the Pakis to show that they will
Understood.
react. But that is something which is expected. And they do know that India this time means business, and they will go ahead
put
with that.
that into perspective, General Kapoor, because it's important for us to understand these escalations from someone who's dealt with them as a Northern Commander and as a Chief. And I thank you for the moment for being with us. We're out of time on this segment, but we look forward to having more conversations with you.